Hey, welcome to this week's episode. Glad you're all here. Hopefully, you are recovering from the election night coverage. Some of you it went a good way, and some of you it didn't go the way you wanted. And we will all get through this, no matter which way you're coming from. I guess for me, it's always just a reminder that God is the one that's actually in control. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. God is in control, and He will get us through these things, even though it makes no sense to us, even though we don't necessarily understand why or how we got here. God will get us through this. So, just hold on to that. Just hold on to that. So, I did want to talk a bit about one aspect of the election, and that's the Electoral College. We tend to hear about that, and in particular when it comes down to those infamous maybe, swing states. It's the Electoral College. Now, if we go back to the beginning, the concept of electors, however you want to say it, it is in the Constitution, and so it was something that was important to the founders of our country. Now, the term Electoral College is not in the Constitution, and college in that sense comes from the concept of colleagues. So, people that get together to do things together, striving for a common goal. So the elector colleagues, that's where that term Electoral College comes from. But the Constitution discusses electors. So what we have is in Article 2 of the Constitution, it describes what electors are and what their purpose is and how they will do things. Now, most of the control was reserved for the states, as in so many aspects of the Constitution. The original founding fathers wanted the states to have the power and have the control, and so they didn't get nitpicky about things. They just said, here's who they are, here's what they do, and here's a few rules about how it's all going to work. Now, when we had the writers, they had the Constitutional Convention, and they said, okay, we're going to create senators, and every state is going to get 2 senators, and every state is going to get members in the House of Representatives depending on your population. And so this kind of impacted this concept of the electors that they also came up with, because we had 2 competing thoughts. One says that Congress, that is the Senate and the House of Representatives, they will elect the president. Hey, they're representatives of the people anyway, and so just let them elect the president. The other side said, no, wait a second. It should be, if you do that, you're removing the people from the actual election process. So we should just use a popular vote. But then the other side said, yeah, but if you look at it, at that time Virginia was very large population-wise compared to some of the other states or colonies, however you want to look at them at that point in history. So they came up with this idea for the election of the president and the vice president of the electors. They did use the same counting mechanism process that was agreed upon for the House of Representatives, and then they added 2 electors for each state because there's 2 senators. So however many members of the House of Representatives you have plus 2, for the senators that each state had. That was how they determined how many electors each state had. And so they put that into the Constitution, which means if we're going to change it, it requires a constitutional amendment, which is a serious process, requires serious undertaking, and that's probably more than anything the reason that we continue to have the Electoral College. Although there's some good reasoning, and we'll talk about that briefly here in a moment as to why we continue to have that. So we have this mechanism for the electors, and like I said, most of the details about how the electors are selected, the requirements for how they cast their voting, can they, in most states, with two exceptions, basically say whoever gets the majority of the votes in this state, that's who the electors, they all vote for that individual. The two states that don't do it that way, Nebraska and Maine, they have a way of splitting up their electors amongst based on the number of votes that each candidate gets. So there is that. So as we move into this process, we simply wait for the votes to be counted. And once the votes are counted, then each state, like I say, has their own rules about how the electors are chosen, and any laws, rules, regulations about how they have to vote, or can they vote different than the majority party or whatever. Anyway, those are all state by state, so we aren't going to dig into 50 different versions of that, although in many cases it's the same. So then the electors come together on the first Tuesday after the second Wednesday in December following a presidential election. So you go to December, second Wednesday, then the very next Tuesday, they get together, they cast their votes, that's tallied, whatever the official requirements are, and they send the results to Congress. And then on the 6th of January, Congress convenes a joint session where the Senate and the House of Representatives meet together, and they go over those votes and they certify the winner, so that they can then move forward with the inauguration. Now, as we kind of looked at these, and we were talking a minute ago, there are some differing opinions about how things should happen. So there are those who say, hey, you know what? The Electoral College is good because it ensures that all parts of the country are involved in selecting the president. And there's the other side that says, wait a second, just use the popular vote. Now, if we go back historically and look at the popular vote, there's been 5 times in history where the individual that receives the electoral vote did not receive a majority of the popular vote. So only 5 times. So for the most part, the Electoral College works well unless you were one of the 5 that got defeated. The most recent one was in 2016 when President Trump defeated Hillary Clinton for the presidency. So it does continue to happen. Those who say, hey, it should just simply be one person, one vote, and best person win. And the other side says, well, yeah, but we have those large states. We have California, we have Texas, we have Florida, we have New York, and if all we needed was to reach a certain number of votes, then they would start at the top with the largest states, and they'd begin to focus on those states, and pretty much leave out some of the smaller states. Although it can almost be argued that happens now, because some of those small states, the ones that have like 3 electors, don't see a lot of the main characters during a campaign. They don't see a lot of the presidential or vice presidential candidates in their states. So I don't know if that's necessarily that good of an argument. However, those who say the Electoral College is good, we need to keep this. And if we look at it and say it gives everybody a fair chance, because if we were to go with the popular vote, then the focus would always be on those larger states. And with the Electoral College, the candidates kind of have to craft together a gathering of electors from different states. So yes, there is a sense of participation being involved in that process, instead of just saying, well, whatever those big states want, I guess we're stuck with it. And yeah, the in the electoral process, the small states don't have a lot of electors, but at the same time, they have to be involved, or in very tight races, they become even more important. There are those who talk about the swing states having too much power. And in reality, it's not that the swing states have so much power, it's that due to their population and the political climate within their state, they can go back and forth depending on which candidate catches their attention. We'll always have those states. For a long time, California has been very, very Democratic. Texas has been Republican, and so on and so forth. And so you always have those states that are going to be one or the other. It's those states that will swing from one election cycle to the other between Democrat and Republican. And so it's not necessarily that those states have power. It's that the people are more willing to look at the other side, the other party, and maybe agree with them on things. So this idea that the swing states have way too much power, so we just ought to get rid of the Electoral College thing, not so sure that's really true. There is an argument against the Electoral College, and they say it's because it's rooted in racism, it's rooted in slavery, and this was true. This was true when we first wrote up the Constitution. There were when they determined how they were going to calculate the number of representatives each state had, the southern states were objecting because they said, we're going to kind of end up on the short end of this stick because you're not counting our slaves. And even though the slaves couldn't vote, they thought they should be counted. So the compromise was that 3 out of 5. So basically 60% of the slaves were counted in the population, even though they could not vote. So early on in history, those states were actually overrepresented, in the House of Representatives, because their population was partially based on the slave population who were not allowed to vote. So in reality, they were rooted in slavery and racism only in those calculations. The concept of the House of Representatives or the concept of the Electoral College is not necessarily rooted itself in slavery and racism. And we've gotten rid of slavery, obviously. We continue to hear once in a while and time and again, it depends on what part of the country you're in, that there are issues regarding access to voting and being, voting opportunities being inhibited. But that really is not because of the Electoral College system. Because no matter what, you have to vote. Whether it's a popular vote, you have to cast a vote. If you want to be counted in having an influence on the electoral vote or setup, then you have to cast a vote. So it's not the Electoral College that is racist in any way. So I think there continues to be discussions about this. In particular, in 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost, I remember there being many discussions in the media about, we really need to look at getting rid of the Electoral College because it's unfair and whatnot. So I hope that through this you have at least a better understanding of what the Electoral College is and how it works, and some of the pros, the cons, the arguments for and against. Like I said earlier, if there is an interest, a desire to change it or remove it, then there has to be a constitutional amendment, which is, like I say, a process in itself. It has to get through the Senate, it has to get through the House, and it has to be ratified by a certain number of the states, and so that process is also described in the Constitution, and it's just not something anybody has taken up at this point in time. So if you like this, please like and follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. We would really appreciate that, trying to get our counts up. If you normally catch me on Facebook, please go to YouTube and follow us there as well, and vice versa. If you usually catch us on YouTube, go over to Facebook and follow us over there. If you don't know how to get to YouTube or Facebook, right here, patmcclanahan.com, there's links there to both Facebook and YouTube, as well as X, and like I say every week, Instagram link is there, but I don't post. Sorry, but I haven't figured it out. I haven't taken the time to figure out how to get it working properly on Instagram. So YouTube, Facebook, X, or like I say, patmcclanahan.com. You can watch the podcast there. Have a great week. We'll see you later. Bye.